الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So we left off in greater sins. We were knowledge,
I think
because
we
knowledge
accidentally.
makes one humble and
You're on
not
mute.
arrogant. Okay, maybe you can mute them from the host.
Sorry, I accidentally bumped into the thing. So inshallah, go ahead, please. Apologize.
Can
Okay,
you mute the other person?
Yeah, I will.
okay,
That's
thank
what I
you.
was trying to do. His number moved, so.
Okay, no worries. Okay. He said he has not realized the most.
Oh no, I don't know what's going on, Sheikh.
Unmute. Okay. I think you muted me, but you can hear me now.
I think something's wrong when I switch it to brother Mikhail's. Yeah, you're okay now.
Okay. Brother Mikhail,
Brother
can you
Mikhail,
mute
can you turn your mute? Can you turn your mic mute, please, Brother Mikhail?
I did it.
Okay. I'm
All right.
trying.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So he said the person, he hasn't realized the most important fact that his knowledge should have taught him the limitation of his knowledge. Because whatever we learn, the more we learn, the more we realize that we don't know. Only the people who, basically just start out learning, then they think they know everything. But in reality, once you learn, you realize there's more possibilities to things. For example, when you ask a question to someone who doesn't have much knowledge on the matter, maybe he has two solutions for that thing. But if you ask someone who has a lot of knowledge on the matter, all sort of possibilities come to his mind or her mind, and they start thinking about them. It could be this way, it could be that way, and they analyze from all different perspectives. And the more a person knows, the more they realize that they don't know, and there's even more knowledge to be learned. He says, how insignificant is what he does know as compared to what is left to be known. He said, the author says, Isaac Newton, a famous scientist who formulated several laws of physics and discovered the force of gravity, said this of himself: I am like a child collecting pebbles on the sand, while vast ocean of truth lies undiscovered before me. So we see most of the people who have knowledge, they realize that they just have a small percentage of that knowledge, not the complete knowledge. He says, a person with knowledge of religion and the hereafter, in fact, will be extremely humble because he will realize his own loneliness. He will know that the accountability of his actions has increased 70-fold as compared to the actions of a person without knowledge. And we have hadith from Imam Sadiq, or riwayat from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, that he said 70 sins of an ignorant person will be forgiven before one sin of a scholar is forgiven. Because the scholar knows, whereas the one who is not a scholar or doesn't have knowledge, he doesn't know. So his sin may be excused in some cases, whereas the scholar, he has no excuse in that matter. He will have the added, as the book continues, he will have the added burden of the responsibility to spread his knowledge and benefit those who don't know. He will therefore be in awesome fear of Allah. Allah says, those of his servants only who are possessed of knowledge, only those people who have knowledge will fear Allah. Surely Allah is mighty and forgiving. If instead a person with religious knowledge is proud of it, he has failed to grasp the essence of his knowledge. Mute the mic, please. Thank you. He said, if it keeps coming, the mute keeps coming off Somehow I think you're pushing. Okay. If instead a person with religious knowledge is proud of his religious knowledge, then he has failed to grasp the essence of the knowledge that Allah has given him. And Allah says about this person in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, it is the likeness of a donkey bearing books. The donkey is just carrying the books. A person may have a lot of knowledge, but if it's not benefiting him, then he is just like a person who's like a parrot. He's just repeating the things that he has memorized and things that he has learned, but if he hasn't put any of that into practice, it's like the donkey carrying books. Maybe the donkey is carrying on top of his back, he is carrying the Quran, he is carrying Usul al-Kafi, he is carrying Bahar al-Anwar, but the donkey doesn't know anything from those books. He is just carrying those. So people can also be like that, and Allah likened a group of people to donkeys carrying books. It says that Balaam Ba'ur, who was a non-practicing scholar, is compared to a dog in the Quran. If a scholar ponders and contemplates, indeed the argument of Allah has been exhausted on him, and there is a mighty responsibility on his shoulders. Because the scholar cannot just sit and he has knowledge and he sees the society is going right and left and they're not on Sirat al-Mustaqim. The responsibility is upon that scholar to help those people and help point them in the right direction. He cannot just sit idly and let things go. Someone needs to be fulfilling that responsibility.
You're going next.
He says that is 7 sins of an ignorant person will be forgiven, while a single sin of a scholar will be accounted from him. So he mentions this. It's actually riwayat from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He said, thus there should be an increase in humility and modesty if his knowledge increases, and not that he should be a prey for pride and vanity. You know, some people learn knowledge just to show off to people, to gain fame and want to be an influencer or something like that. And when it comes to knowledgeable people, sometimes you find that some of the most knowledgeable people that you have ever met in your life, no one knows them. They are, you know, just around. I have met many scholars in Najaf or Karbala, and the world doesn't really know them. But in their circles, they are known, but outside, they are not. When you see that on the other side, some people, maybe they are known by everyone, you know, but they don't have that much knowledge compared to the other one. As it doesn't count about how many likes we get or how many views we get or this thing. Knowledge is not for that. Knowledge is to better oneself, save their family, and save society as much as they are able to. He says, a deed performed with sincerity and humility is the essence of obedience and of great value and significance. If it is performed with pride, it is like a lifeless face, which isn't worth anything. A good deed is beneficial only if Allah accepts it. No one knows whether his good deed has been accepted by Allah or not because of sincerity, because of piety. I remember one of the late ulama, it is said about him that when he used to go recite Salatul Jama'ah, he would go home afterwards and pray that Salah again. He said, maybe I became proud or something. I said, oh, I have all of these hundreds of people or thousands of people behind me praying. Maybe I had an ounce of pride that, look, so many people are praying behind me. So he would repeat all of his prayers out of precaution due to this thing. And this is knowledge. He said, therefore, like knowledge, a good deed must also be a cause for humility instead of pride and vanity regarding the qualities of the believers. Allah says, and those who give what they give in alms while their hearts are full of fear that to their Lord they must return. Holding on to a good deed, you know, is harder than doing the good deed itself. Because when you do the good deed, it is written that you did a good deed for Allah, sincerely for Him. But then when you tell someone else about your good deed, you said, oh, I saw that homeless person over there. I gave them, you know, $50, something like that. In that case, it's recorded as a deed that is done publicly. And then if you tell more people than that, it is recorded actually as a deed that is done to show off. So it's not even a good deed anymore. It becomes something of riyah, of showing off in order to please people. So losing a good deed is easy, but maintaining the good deed is very difficult. And this example as giving about doing the good deed secretly, telling one person, telling other people, is paraphrasing from one of the riwayat from Imam Bakr alayhi salam. So he says, it is equally foolish to be proud of wealth and position. Like other worldly acquirements, these also are transitory and can be lost easily overnight. Besides, Allah may give wealth and position to a person in order to test him. It is possible that these worldly bounties given by Allah makes the person proud, oblivious of the needs of the poor, and harsh and disrespectful towards others. There's a story of a man who was poor, and he asked the Prophet to bless his business. And the Prophet warned him about this and said, I don't know if this is something good that we should do. You should ask for this. But he insisted. So the Prophet prayed for him, and he became very successful, very wealthy. And he eventually got so engrossed with his business that he quit coming to the masjid. He used to come to the masjid every single day and pray all the prayers in congregation. But then he got so busy, he didn't come anymore. And when it came time to pay the zakat, he refused, and he didn't want to part with his wealth. He had hubb dunya, love of this world, love of money, love of position, love of fame. He loved his business more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he failed that test. And money, it comes and goes. Sometimes someone has a lot of things. I have seen people who were millionaires and they lost everything, and then they get their money back. Some years later, they build it back, and then they lose it again, and then they build it again. Health is like this too. Some day someone has their health, next day they are, chronically ill. So these things, they come and go. So we shouldn't be proud of them, and we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what we have. He said, it's also possible that such a person in lure of wealth won't care for his religious obligations. For example, when the time for Salatul Jummah is wajib, Allah says to leave off all business and trade is better for you if you but knew, and hasten to the call of prayer for the Friday prayer. But maybe someone says, I'm going to leave my business for 2 hours. Maybe it is lunchtime. I own a restaurant. I'm going to lose so much money on Friday. I should just keep that restaurant open and make that money. But that money isn't good for him. He is disregarding the command of Allah, and he should leave off, his duty just for a couple hours, 2 hours at most, go to Jummah and then do his obligation and then leave. He said he may earn wealth unlawfully and spend it unlawfully in wasteful, luxurious ways. Israf. He says all such people have failed the test to which they were subjected by Allah. They have incurred the displeasure of Allah and will face severe chastisement. So wealth is actually a calamity for these people, and certainly not a thing to be proud of. Worldly possessions are a bounty only for those who realize that these are a trust with them to be utilized in a manner to gain the pleasure of Allah. For example, wealth is a good thing. There's nothing haram. It's nothing saying that we need to be poor and we need to be sleeping, on the street or something, like wearing old clothes or something like that. It's not like that. But wealth is good when we realize the purpose of the wealth. What should we do with it? Some people became very wealthy and they sponsor people to go to Ziyarat Arba'in, for example. They become wealthy. They sponsor clothing drives for, I know one brother in England, very wealthy, but he sends containers and containers of blankets and jackets and things to Pakistan in order to help them in the winter time when it's cold. Also, he sends containers of toys to kids in Karbala who are orphans. He's using his money in a good way. He's using his money to help his local Husseiniya, for example. This is good. We should ask Allah to give us wealth in order to use it in the right way. But some people, they get their wealth and they want to, spend it wastefully, and they don't help anyone, only themselves. So this wealth becomes an enemy to himself. He said, worldly possessions are a bounty only for those who realize they are a trust with them. It's a trust. Allah gives it to you as a trust. He can also take it back. He says, Allah says, do they think that by what we aid them with of wealth and children, we are hastening to them of the good things? No, they don't perceive it. And know that your property and your children are a temptation. So we need to do the best with the things that Allah has given us. Use all the tools that we have for the right purpose. Allah has given us many tools. We can use them for good or we can use them for evil. He's given us, for example, our tongue. We could spread the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. We can talk good to people or we could abuse people with our tongue. Everything we have, we can use it for good or we can use it for bad. He said there are many incidents of the people of the past illustrating the unreliability of all these worldly glamour. And an incident is recorded that when Umar ibn Layth with 70,000 trained warriors came to confront Amir Ismail Sasanid with his 10,000 soldiers. And when the war cries and the bugle was sounded, the horse of Umar bolted and took him into the rows of the enemies. In this way, Amir Ismail became victorious without even fighting. He confined Umar in a tent. It is said that Umar perchance saw one of his past students. Umar called him and said that he was very hungry. The student at once brought for him a piece of meat to eat. Since there was no vessel, he put the meat in the pail of the horse and lit a fire below it. Then he went away and did some errands. By chance, a dog passed by. When it put its head in the pail, the steam of the stew made its mouth hot. When he tried to quickly remove its head, the handle of the vessel was caught in its neck and it ran away with all the things together. When Umar began to laugh about this, someone asked him, "Why are you so amused?" Umar said that once my commander had complained that your kitchenware could hardly be carried on 300 horses, all of his utensils. And today I am seeing that a dog is easily carrying it away. The things, they can come and they can go. He said the importance and significance of humility as a human characteristic can be judged by the fact that Allah has commanded his messenger to practice humility. He said, and make yourself gentle toward the believers. And he praised his servants who had this quality. And he said, and the servants of the beneficent God are those who walk on the earth in humbleness. And we should never be proud or arrogant. We have to remember the reason why we do things is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to be seen by mankind. Look at the one who gives charity publicly in order to show off and be seen as a good and generous man. All he will get from this is what he sought to get, which is recognition of people. And people will remember him as a good man. Whereas look at the examples of the Imams alayhimus salam, who would give charity secretly in the night and cover their faces so no one knew that it was them. They had the pure intention of pleasing Allah, who knows the hidden actions that are done for his sake. It's well known that, for example, the father of Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi used to go and hear a scholar at the masjid, and he would be teaching classes from a book, and he really enjoyed these lessons, and he was amazed at the book. So he came home to tell his son, Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi, the author of Mafatih al-Janan. He came and told his son, that I really enjoyed this book, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that one day you could write a book like this. Then, he didn't know that it was his son's book all along. So Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi, he never told his father that it was his book, and he chose to keep this between him and Allah instead of showing off. He could have easily just said, that's my book that you enjoy. I actually wrote that book, but he didn't say anything. And this is an example of working sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The action is not being, recognized by the people. It's not about that, but rather it's for Allah recording that action that you have done for you being done purely and solely for his sake. This is the true sincerity and humbleness and working in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the narrations that we have, it is said that the Imam has superiority in every single quality, every single type of akhlaq. The Imam is the height of that. Same with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, because they are hujjatullahi fi ardih, proof of Allah on the earth. We have had riwayat from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. It says, if it has befitted Allah to allow some of his creatures to be proud, he would have permitted it for his special servants, the saints and the prophets. But the being of the Almighty is pure from all bad qualities. He made pride detestable for them and liked humility for them. Thus they kept their chests near the ground, their foreheads smeared with dust, and they continued to bow down before the believers in humility and remained in a weak condition on the earth. One of the reasons that we prostrate on the earth is a reminder to place our faces on the ground in humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We came from the earth and we will also return to the earth. And there is no place for pride or arrogance. This salat that we do every day should be a reminder of that when we place our forehead on the earth, that we came from this dust and this dirt, and we will also return back to this dirt. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, the best person, the one who is closest to me on the day of resurrection, will be only one who has the best behavior, and he is the most humble. Also, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, there are two angels in the heavens who are appointed on the people, so that one who is humble may be exalted in status by them, and one who is proud and arrogant may be degraded and humiliated by them. Also, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib said, pride is that from which Allah has protected his believing servants through salat, through zakat, and through siyam or fast on the appointed days. Their organs and their body parts may have peace. The glance is cast down by a feeling of helplessness, humiliates the self, makes the hearts humble. It removes ego from them. Because the delicate parts of the body are smeared with dust during sajda, and the 7 special parts fall on the earth and express their lowliness. And in fasting, the stomach touches the back in obedience to his command. So we see that placing our face down on the ground, doing sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the ways, is the most humble way. How could you get any lower than this by placing your face, placing your face on the earth? And this is one of the complaints that the Arabs had against those pagan Arabs had against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said, how can we place our face below our backside? Because their backside is elevated above their brain and above their head. But this is the ultimate submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, placing your face on the ground, showing him that you are the lowest. Why you say, Subhana Rabbi A'la wa bihamdih. Glory to my Lord who is Al-A'la, the Most High. And me, I am the most low. I am placing myself at the lowest point that I can go, and recognizing that you are the Most High. He said the primary aim of worship is to create humility in the person and to destroy any type of pride. Acts of worship are therefore to be performed in the prescribed manner to be acceptable to Allah. Worship which is accompanied by pride is never accepted. Worship denotes obedience and submission to Allah, and it is not meant to show oneself to be great and superior to the people. One shouldn't say, oh, I have the best of recitation, or I have the best, I can recite dua the best, or I can recite Quran better than so many people. This is not the aim of reading Quran to show off or making dua to show off. It is about the sincere intentions. And it's said that, we'll end with this story. It is said that one of the people, he had, it was in Iraq, he had a musibah that was so powerful. As soon as he starts, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah, everyone cries. They just lose it. And he didn't have like some special type of voice. It wasn't like one of those beautiful voices that you hear in some people who do musibah or read dua or something like this. So someone asked him, how come like, how did you get that? How come you recite and you don't have anything really, it doesn't seem special. So how come every time you say, you just start your musibah, everyone is crying? And he said that one day he went to the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and he asked the Imam for this blessing in order to make people cry by his musibah and reciting and make them remember the tragedies that befell
Okay,
Ahmad
y'all put
and
your
to
hands
move,
together.
and
All
to
right.
and to move their hearts. So what he did, he said, when he asked this, he said, I'm asking this from you, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he put his tongue on the dhari, and he asked Amir al-Mu'mineen to give him this blessing. And after this, whenever he recited the musibah, everyone would cry. He was doing it sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wanted people to remember the Ahlul Bayt and what they went through, and it wasn't in order to show off and all of these things. I remember one Sheikh was telling me that I was reciting, he said about himself, I was reciting musibah for Sayyidah Ruqayya or Sakina, and it was going well. And in the middle of it, something came to my mind. I said, "Wow, look, I'm reciting, and all of these people are crying. Wow, I'm making these, 3, 4, 500 people crying because I'm reciting so well." And all of a sudden, when that thought came to his head, he told me he started to stutter and the mood was broken and he couldn't continue as he was before. So he told me, when you do these things and you do musibah, put everything out of your mind and just think about the personality that you are reciting about, and think about that you are doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not for showing off. So these are some of the advices from the book and some things that we prepared, inshallah, for the class. And I think this is our time is finished with this, and we'll take a 5-minute break, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma
Allah
salli ala
ala
Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Inshallah.
Okay, so